Good morning, everyone. Oh, I need to hear you over the blower. Good morning, everyone. To our chairman, our commissioners, our county manager, our colleagues, Garner family, and friends, good morning again. I am Shania Chavis Rucker. And you got to know that we're going to run into every possible natural sound between the blower and the trucks, but we are going to press on nonetheless. I am Shania Chavis Rucker with the Fulton Government Television and also Fulton Films, and it brings me great pleasure to serve as your mistress of ceremonies. As I was sharing with some of the Garner family this morning, it's not many events, Mr. Chairman, that will bring me out of my socially distanced bubble. But it only took one call, literally one call from my family here at the library for me to immediately say yes to this invitation. You all know this is a very special day for all of us. And while I'm sure that many of you may hear many people say today, this next statement, Commissioner Hall, I know many people are going to say this, but I know this to be true. I am Commissioner Garner's favorite. I am the favorite. Oh, you're the favorite. Okay. So we know we will hear that quite a bit this morning, but this is in fact a joyous day, and we're grateful that you all came out here, and we're even grateful for the weather, despite what the leaf blower is over there doing. So if everyone would just be so kind to just use your outside voices today, and then that way we can enjoy this moment. I've been charged with keeping us on program, and so with that, it brings me great pleasure to bring forth our county manager, Mr. Dick Anderson, who has been extremely supportive of this effort, and he comes now to bring us greetings. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Ms. Joan. Good morning. What a great day to be here, and the weather cooperating, sounds notwithstanding. I'll just briefly say that I don't know if I was her favorite, but I'm the only one that she voted for, that I know of. She's probably scratched her head subsequently, Mr. Chairman and Vice Chair Hall, but she did vote, I think. That's what was reported. But she was a great and lovely lady. I can think of nothing better. Sometimes we dedicate something like a bridge or whatever, but this is not an inanimate object. This is full of life. It's been everything for us, from a library to an early voting center, and just been a center of this community. So I want to introduce Ms. HOLLOMAN, GAYLE HOLLOMAN, come on up, who really makes this whole operation go, her and her staff and GAYLE, as I do at every event. Thank you for your leadership, but what a special day to recognize Commissioner Joan Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. We really appreciate it. Thank you all so very much. It's my pleasure to be here. I worked for many, many years with Commissioner Hall, and along with, she was the Chief of Staff for Commissioner Garner, and it was just a pleasure working with that entire staff. One thing I can say about Commissioner Garner is that she loved libraries, and she was a fierce advocate of libraries. Don't let anyone fool you. She made sure that I knew when she was having a meeting and I needed to be there, and I needed to be there on time. And whenever I got there, it seemed like everybody else knew to be there 30 minutes earlier, because there would always be a crowd. You know, even if she said be there at 6, everybody be there at 5:30, and you're like, wow, did I miss something? But she was very, very involved, and she wanted to make sure that the library system was a part of her health initiatives primarily. And so whenever she had information to share, she would do that. The other thing is that she understood that libraries are community hubs and that we are disseminators of information. And so it was always a pleasure, as I said, to work with her. It's a pleasure to be here today with you all. Judge Morrison, we really miss her, and for all of those things, she will long be remembered.
And thank you all for your team for what you all have been doing to keep her spirit alive right here at this facility. At this moment, it also brings me pleasure to bring to you the folks who may or may not have voted for Dick. I'm not really sure. No, I'm kidding, Dick. It brings us pleasure to bring members of our Board of Commission here to greet you and to speak about just the good times that we all have. I think all of us, if we had the time, could tell at least 2 or 3 good Joan stories. But these folks here know her well, worked with her and really try, even to this day, to keep her memory and her spirit alive. So with that, we will have the chairman of our Fulton County Board of Commissioners, Commissioner ROBB Pitts, followed by Commissioner Lee Morris from District 3, and then Vice Chair and the Commissioner's former Chief of Staff, Commissioner Natalie Hall, representing District 4. Mr. Chairman.
All right, good morning, and thank each of you for being here with us today. We're honored to be naming the Ponce de Leon Library on behalf of my friend, the late Joan B. Garner. Now, I can be very brief in my remarks because between what the Mistress of Ceremony said and the county manager and Ms. Holloman, I don't have anything else to say. So I'm going to be very brief. I had the pleasure of serving with Commissioner Garner, and she really represented her District 4 tirelessly from 2010 until her passing in 2017. And as I was saying earlier to 2 or 3 people, I can't think of anything that we could have named that would have meant more to Commissioner Garner than a library. So with that in mind, I just want to say how much I enjoyed serving with her, and I know that she is looking down upon us today and smiling. So thank each of you for being here today, and you'll be hearing from Commissioner Morris and Commissioner Hall at some point in the program. But thank each of you for being here today with us.
Thanks. You can see I've crashed the program. But I'm delighted to be here, and I wanted to say a word or two about Joan. You know, she and I had so much in common. She was an African-American, openly gay, democratic woman, and I'm me. But in all seriousness, we considered ourselves centrists on the commission. We really did, and we called ourselves that. We often had lunch. She called me as soon as I was elected in my May primary, and we had lunch. And we talked about all the things that we did have in common, which was virtually everything, actually, on a policy matter. Because in reality, there is no Democrat and Republican stuff going on in the county. There's no white and black stuff going on in the county. And Joan was one of those folks who didn't care about those things. She just wanted to do what was right. And when you think about public servants, Joan Garner was the example of what we all ought to aspire to be. And so I'm delighted to be here to help honor her. Jane, she was really very, very special. And I'll just say, weeks before she died, she called me and said, "Would you take my place on the Atlanta Beltline board?" And I thought, well, Joan, that's not your decision. It's up to the Board of Commissioners, but I would be delighted to do that. And that was just the way she was. Even in her final days, she was concerned about having the county do what was right and serve. So anyway, again, Joan Garner, the public servant that we all ought to try to aspire to. I'm glad her name is going to live on in this building. Vice Chair.
Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, this is a little bit hard for me. Like the chairman said, Commissioner, everyone before us said so many great things about Commissioner. But while I was sitting here, I was thinking about the first time she got a tablet PC, and she came to me and she said, "Guess what I did? I actually put Kindle on my tablet so I can read my books from my tablet PC." And she was so excited. So I was just sitting here thinking how this is such a wonderful occasion, and it's so befitting because she loved to read and she loved community. And for this library to be named after her, it is an honor because we live not too far from here in the Old Fourth Ward, and this is one of the libraries that she would come to. And I want to acknowledge her wife, Judge Jane Morrison, who's here. They were neighbors of mine for about 20 years in the Old Fourth Ward, living 2 blocks away from me. And when I say citizen advocates and, for social justice and human rights and all of that, that is what Commissioner Garner stood for. And I see her doctor. Oh my gosh, hey. Oh, such an awesome doctor who really kept me and the team abreast on what was going on, and so that, we could at least know what to do during that time when she was fighting that battle against cancer. And I just also want to say, Commissioner Garner was the kind of person that she could see things in you that you couldn't even see in yourself. And so that's how I became her chief of staff, because she just kept coming after me after she won her election. And I said, Joan, that's the craziest thing on this earth. I'm an IT manager for 20 years. What do I look like being a chief of staff? And she said, there's something in you that I see, and I know that you're about community. You're the most social IT person I've ever seen in my life. And so that's how I became to be your chief of staff. But just thank you, everyone that made this possible. I know that she is looking down on us, and she is probably so happy right now. Thank you.
I've known of Joan Garner as long as I've been an activist. When I was 18, getting my start in organizing, a Grady baby, as we say, from Adamsville, riding MARTA to my community organizing meetings with my little backpack, probably had a Audre Lorde book or something by James Baldwin with me. I was determined even then to make my way and to have my voice heard in the city as a Black gay man. I felt compelled to both bear witness to and confront injustice, to respond to suffering. I also knew I needed models. I knew I needed a blueprint. I knew I needed a map to guide my journey to leadership and advocacy. I knew I needed a North Star. Then I found one. Atlanta has always given me everything I needed. I remember hearing stories about Joan Garner. I admired her from afar for many, many years, and she became, I suppose, one of my models, someone I saw and enjoyed her presence immensely. Then, as luck or fate or destiny would have it, I eventually had the opportunity to meet her in person. You see, I was invited to be on a panel that she was moderating. This was August 29th, 2014, nearly 7 years to this day. I was so nervous and so excited, and I really wanted to make a good impression. The panel was hosted by ITLA, or In the Life Atlanta, and the panel was concerning the legacy of Bayard Rustin. Joan Garner was the moderator. I tried my best to have poise and to speak eloquently and not embarrass myself, but I was so in awe of her. And if you've ever been on the same stage with someone you really admire, you would recognize there's both a sense of anxiety, but also a sense of, well, maybe I'm doing something right. Following the program, I went up to thank her, and I remember she was so gracious and so nice. And that is one value that I think is so important in public service, to not only work hard, to not only be smart, but to have grace. And in these times, I think we need courage, certainly, but I also think we need a little bit more grace. Later in my HIV advocacy work, I would have the opportunity to meet with her again. I continued to be impressed and inspired by her example, how she could use her platform to advocate for the HIV movement. These are the memories that I most carry with me today as we honor the legacy of Joan Garner with the renaming of this library. And that is why I advocated to have this library renamed, to not only have a building in the city named after a Black LGBTQ person, which was very important, but also to honor Joan Garner because she represented the very best of us. We can only achieve greatness in this world and a better city if we remain connected to the greatness in us. More than ever, we need examples and models like the one Joan Garner set to provide clarity and purpose, to remind us of the importance of books, of ideas, of communication, of building bridges. Let this library serve as a space to commemorate the legacy of Joan Garner and also serve as a reminder of the example she set, an example of service, an example of leadership, an example of commitment, an example of grace. I also hope this library will serve as a love letter to the Black LGBTQ community on the eve of Atlanta's Black LGBTQ Pride celebration. I sometimes wonder what it would have meant for me growing up in Atlanta, that little black boy from Adamsville, with the boots of homophobia planted so firmly on my neck, what it would have meant for me in those years, knowing that right outside Joan Garner was fighting for my right to exist. I hope this library and what it represents will let future generations know that someone fought for your right to exist. Finally, I am also convinced that many aspiring leaders will visit this very library and recognize that they don't have to worry because their way has already been paved, and go on to become the first Black openly LGBTQ Atlanta mayor, Georgia governor, Supreme Court justice, even US president. Their way has already been paved. Your way has already been paved. Special thanks to the renaming committee for taking this journey with me: Ann Votts, Marguerite Dye, Jeannie Lightsey, Wayne Chelikowski, Carl Serber. Special thanks to Jeff Graham, who provided wise counsel when I first shared my dream with him. Special thanks to Fran Calhoun, where I first had the vision for this library renaming as a participant in the Fulton County Citizens University. Special thanks also goes to the countless community members that helped circulate the petition for this renaming. Special thanks to Damian Denson for keeping me in the loop. And finally, to Judge Jane Morrison, thank you for trusting me with this. I am so grateful to have met you, and you have also become one of the many models that I look for inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good job. He was so excited, I didn't even get a chance to even introduce him. That's Charles Stevens, everyone. He has been the chair of the nominating committee. Nominating committee, he mentioned you. I see you, Jeff. Just wave for us. We don't get to see you. Who's here? Wave. Yeah, thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you. Jeff, good to see you. Good to see you. And now we want to hear from Commissioner Garner's family. You all know this was a really big deal for them, right? I mean, can you imagine being able to say, well, we have a library named after Joan Garner? Well, now we really do. It is a big deal. It is a very big deal, like many things in Fulton County, Mr. Chairman. So with that, Judge Morrison, come on up. We couldn't wait to see you today. Come on and speak on behalf of the family.
Thank you, Madam MC. You were Joan's favorite television person. And I don't doubt, Commissioner Morris, that you were her favorite, not African American, not woman, not lesbian, not Afghan, but yeah. Joan had many favorites, but Joan loved libraries. Joan loved libraries. I want to thank her family, many of whom will be viewing this by video, but it is certainly time to celebrate Joan in a very bricks and mortar kind of way. Many of you are already remembering and celebrating Joan as you, I could do this because I'm far enough away. Let's try that again. All right. I am very committed, and Joan will be very committed, to our health and to vaxxing up and masking up, all right? But it's time to celebrate Joan in a very bricks and mortar way. Many of you, like I, go around town and you see Joan. You see her when you walk into a room where you remember meeting with her. You see her when you greet other people who worked with her. And Sometimes you see her name writ large in the sky. I saw it this morning with that sunset. It was beautiful, and she's with us always. But now we have an actual physical place to remember Joan. And it's very fitting, as people have said and pointed out, that it is a library. Joan served on the library board before she was a commissioner. In fact, I remember on our first date, I was trying to cook her dinner and she was getting phone calls about her service on the library board. It was back when we didn't have cell phones, it was a house phone. I'm in the kitchen trying to cook chicken, and she's taking a phone call about the library board and giving it her full attention, as she always did. So involved in so many projects. So many of you know her from those community projects, from the organizations and the causes that she worked tirelessly for. The library board was one of them. Before that, she served the city as Mayor Maynard Jackson's appointee to the gay and lesbian community. She served on so many boards, so many organizations, so many efforts. But libraries and librarians had a special place in her heart. So it's very fitting that this is the place that will carry on her name. I want to share with you a story about Joan as a young woman. And I'm just going to leave this image with you. When Joan was a young girl, she was growing up in D.C. And her family, and they're going to be participating in this, they'll verify this for sure, lots of sibs, lots of cousins growing up in a historically black neighborhood, which is now part of the Georgetown. Come down the hill there, what used to be called Foggy Bottom. And she grew up there, and as she would say, Washington, D.C., the mall, the buildings, was her playground. She was very adventurous, bold, and determined. She would ride the bus and get to know her city. So when she later was a very determined, hard-working student, and she needed a place to study, she would do her studying in a library, in our library, in the Library of Congress. And I want to give you the image of that young woman, always styling. I don't know if she had a fro or a flip, but she would put her books under her arm and she would go into the Library of Congress and do her studying. Libraries were very important to Joan, always. This place has a special place in her heart. I want to thank the dreamer among us, Charles Stevens, who came up with this idea. Something I have had to realize is that many people knew Joan, and Charles, you certainly knew Joan and understood her in a very important way. I like to think that I knew her best, but many, many of you knew her well and cared for her. I want to thank those of you who cared for her in so many ways, who supported her politically. Jeff Graham, two of her treasurers for her campaign are right here, Al Quillian and Cindy Smith. Her doctor was pointed out earlier, Annette Bernard, and her nurse, Melissa Adamson. People who knew her as a friend who would come and care for her at the home. And Joan took care of all of us for years, and at the end you all took care of her in so many ways. I'm missing people, I apologize. So many of you knew her very well and cared for her. And now we get to honor her, as I say, in a very bricks and mortar way. I'm not sure when the sign comes down. I've been trotting past here on my runs looking for a sign. I'm going to turn this back over to her favorite Fulton County government television personality.
Good job, Judge. Good job. And so now the moment we've been waiting for, I would like to turn this back over to our library team because they are ready for the big HGTV, or we'll call it FGTV reveal. You ready, Claudia? All right.
If we could invite our commissioners, library director, and family of Joan Garner to we're going to actually do two unveilings. We have two areas that we want to unveil for you today. We'll start over here on the brick wall. And we'll get family members and commissioners over here. Only two will be able to pull the curtain. So we'll have Judge Morrison and Commissioner Hall, I think would be appropriate to pull the curtain back.
Hold on 1 second.
And then Charles, we'll have you do the one over here. So we're gonna let them count it down. No, not yet. There you go, there you go. So we're gonna count you down. Just give it a sec. We want some pictures first.